Okay, I'm holding this Deus too. Now this has got a 9-inch coil on it currently. And yeah, you can use this 9-inch coil on the South Beach too, boys and girls. You can use the 11-inch coil, and you can even use that bigger 11 by 13 coil offering too. And all three of these coils may yield some better performance on a beach here sooner versus later. Now, I was in a discussion. YouTube poster, Southern Relic Adventures, and he had found a big old gold ring, okay? I think it read like 82, 83 on an air test with a DS2. And you know, when these machines come out, you know, I was telling people, and I've never hunted a Salt Beach, by the way, but just based on my understanding and what testing I'd done with this machine, you know, I started making a comment like, well, you could do some pretty good select digging with this machine. Meaning you could maybe spy the targets that are higher conductors out of the gold ring range, comparing the results gotten using bait sensitive and dive program. You know, there's some people who say, yeah, sharpshooter, you're full of it and all that stuff. And then the subject came up, and now I can understand this. Oh, what about Mr. T's big gold ring? Well, if you go over and watch that Southern Relic Adventures video, he took that ring to the beach. And I sort of gave him some advice on what I would like to, you know, what I wanted to see. He did it. Okay. Basically, I'll give you a little summary here. And yeah, during the tourist season, you know, you got to get this call over the real estate to get the goods, you know, because somebody could be right behind you. Would you want to be digging a clad dive if you could put odds on a higher conductor versus digging a $200 or $300 scrap gold ring, you know, as an example? Well, I know what I'd rather be doing, okay? Well, Mr. T's gold ring could mimic a zinc and penny. And if you'll watch that gentleman's video, he even buried a deeper zinc and penny, and he buried that Mr. T's ring even deeper. Okay. So, sort of the moral of the story here, now this is just my advice. People don't have to follow my advice. That's up to you. If you got over a signal with this detector and beach sensitive, and that's your primary mode on wet salt sand, it's the deepest, the most sensitive to the gold. If you come up on a signal with this machine that's not giving any ID, for example, and you go to the dive program, and you're getting an equivalent strength signal, okay, that's probably a signal you ought to dig. That could be Mr. T's ring. If the signal is weaker in the beach sensitive, yet goes stronger in the dive, that's likely a high conductive coin. That could be the clad dime. That could be the quarter, clad quarter, even a silver quarter, you know, that's all rusted out or decayed. Decayed, that's a better word. Okay, now what about zinc and pennies? And there's been some talk about this, and I've seen people make comments. And this gentleman did bury a zinc and penny. Now, you know, there are no absolutes, but, you know, when you're digging a 10 and 12-inch hole in soupy sand, it does take quite a bit of time. Some targets obviously get recovered faster than others, but it can be very time-consuming in that old wet, heavy, soupy sand, you know. Well, looks like to me, generally, and you all can test this for yourself, a zinc and penny in beach sensitive program may read low. And let me say this too. This machine, based on everything that I've read and talked to actual beach hunters, this Deus 2 doesn't seem to ever read high on a target. It doesn't up average a target in the wet salt sand. It can read low, but it never reads high. So a zinc and penny, let's say you got an old crusty zinc and penny. Well, you may see a 40 or 50 in the meter on this machine and beach sensitive. You know, and that's gold ring range signal. And you're like, well, I guess I'll dig this. Well, you can do that, and it might be a gold ring. But if you check that target in the dive program, and you see the ID on that thing jump, if it jumped, remember, zinc and pennies, they get corrosion on them. Gold, not so much, okay? And I think that's sort of what causes this detector to behave like it does. That zinc and penny that's corroded, that dive program's going to like it better. And it'll give a higher ID. Now, it may not give zinc and penny ID, but it may read substantially higher, okay? What if the ID jumps 10 points on it? Or 12. When you sweep it, would that be a gold ring? Well, you would actually think about this. A gold ring that reads, let's say 50. Let's say your zinc and penny hit 50 on this machine. You got a 50 read signal in beach sensitive. Well, if that was a true ID on that gold ring, what would the dive program do? The dive program sure wouldn't read it higher, would it? If it did anything, it would read it the same or lower or not, non-existent, no ID or weaker signal. Because a ring reading 50 might not be a very big ring. Okay, so this may be a way for you to get around some of those zinc and pennies. And some of those zinc and pennies corroded, they may only air test 82 or 83. Because they're so corroded, parts of them are already, you know, they've lost some of their mass or shape. And I just thought I would share this. You know, but yeah, go look at that gentleman's video. He did this video, it ain't been too long ago. And some of you older folks out there, you know, you don't want to dig every signal. You want to try to place you some healthy odds on digging gold versus clad coins, you know, excluding nickels. Take a look at it. Because I do believe it can help you. But again, there's no absolutes. And of course, you know, naturally, you know, if your targets, you know, if targets are extremely sparse, you know, if you're out on a beach in the tourist season, well, depending on how much pressure it's had, the targets might not be so sparse. And you might not want to waste too much of your time digging clad dimes and quarters. Of course, there's always a risk of missing a silver, but now remember, you see a target in a dive program on this machine, what if it reads 96 or 7 or 8? Well, you might dig that target. That may be that old big silver bracelet down there. So, you know, you're not limited to say, well, I'll never dig a signal that reads in the 90s or the high 80s on this machine. You know, yeah, those upper 90s, you know, you start getting into 96 plus territory, you might dig them. It's all up to you, folks. Again, I've not saltwater beach hunted with this machine, but I think I got a pretty good understanding of what's going on with it. Some people may find that hard to believe, but you know, oh well. All I do is share info, and I try not to lead people astray, okay? I hope you enjoyed.